Hello, this is Michael Uniacke and bringing you the latest from the Disability Newsroom. In dramatic breaking news, a radical disability transport group has hijacked a Qantas flight from Melbourne to Sydney. Armed with unspecified weapons but believed to include at least two hardbound copies of the Disability Discrimination Act, the group forced its way into the cockpit and ordered the plane to divert to Mildura. A police rapid response team has surrounded the plane, which is believed to have 63 passengers on board. The passengers are now held as hostages, while a police negotiating team is shouting at the plane through an industrial-strength loudhailer, just in case any of the hijackers turned out to be deaf. The radical disability group is believed to be Al-Qasalso, the disabled splinter group of Al-Qaeda. It has released a list of demands which include fully accessible trams, trains, buses, taxis and battery rechargers. Al-Qasalso also released a statement declaring that if their demands were not met, they will inflict a permanent disability on each of the hostages every half hour. While the standoff continues, the Mildura Disability Advisory Group angrily denied reports that it was one of Al-Qasalso's Australian sleeper cells. A spokeswoman for the Mildura group admitted that one of their activists did in fact have chronic fatigue syndrome, but otherwise the rest of the group was usually wide awake. Meanwhile, Qantas denied there was a crisis, saying the diversion to Mildura was a good example of the airline's swift response to passenger demands. Back in Melbourne, plans by the Department of Miscellaneous Human Services to change its funding policy for disability groups are now believed to be in disarray. The new policy called for funding to be based on essays written to allow the department to allocate most funding to disabilities deemed the worst one of them all. The newsroom here has been leaked a confidential report which has revealed the extent to which the department's funding unit has slid into chaos as it attempted to disqualify numerous groups which wrote increasingly desperate essays. The report gives some examples of essays rejected, one from the Australian Business Council, which insisted that a typical public servant was a disability. In a similar vein, the department rejected an attempt by the Australian Labor Party to argue that membership of the Young Liberals was evidence of a very severe disability. The Office of the Commissioner for Invisible Disabilities attempted to enter a corpse. The office claimed that to be dead was to be 100% disabled 24 hours a day, and its own way, death was invisible. The Amputees Association, however, took this one step further when it argued a case for a headless corpse. It maintained that in terms of disability, if you were dead and missing your head as well, then you were certainly in a spot of bother. However, these entries were rejected on the grounds that as a minimum requirement, people with disabilities were required to be alive. The report reflected some doubt on the Minister's ability to define the meaning of life and called for a common-sense approach. A spokeswoman for the Minister insisted there was no chaos within the funding unit and said that the Minister had expressed delight at what he described as considerable writing talent within the disability sector. And in Sydney, line taxis may be no more, but in positive news for accessible airline travel, a new company called Jelly Airlines will take to the skies in aircraft that can carry any passenger regardless of disability. Jelly Airlines will run a fleet of modified jumbo jets and will be staffed entirely by people with disabilities. In what is believed to be a world first, the inaugural flight will have guide dogs in the cockpit assisting the pilots with vision impairments. The Minister for Aviation launched Jelly Airlines at Mascot Airport during a gala disability expo, at which the radical disability transport group Al-Qasalso ran an information and recruitment stand. And a highlight of the launch was the appearance of the disability rock group In Excess, which performed the Aeroplane Jelly song and followed up with Accessible Peace Chain. That's all we have from the Disability Newsroom for now. We'll be back later on, but for now it's good night.